I don't tell this story often. Not because I'm afraid of being believed or ridiculed, but because it still follows me, even now. When I close my eyes and think about the timberline at dawn, I don't see the sun coming up through the pines. I see it. I'm getting ahead of myself. It was 5 years ago. I was 47, lean from the field season, still running long miles in the off-season. Grew up hunting whitetail back in the Ozarks with my father, but after college, I moved west and never looked back. There's something about the high country real wilderness that calls to a man once he's tasted it. I'd drawn a mule deer tag for northern Idaho, late October, up near the Selkirk Mountains, where the roads turn to washboard gravel and disappear under canopies so thick daylight barely reaches the forest floor. I'd hunted the area before solo and knew just the basin to set up camp in. I took my time getting there, 3 hours past the last service bar on my phone, a fire road with more potholes than path, just me, my 96 Tacoma, and the sound of tyres crunching frost-hardened mud. Once I reached the logging spur I liked, I parked under a stand of tamarack and strapped my Alice pack tight across my shoulders. I had everything I needed for a 5-day backcountry stay. A bivvy sack and roll-up pad, Jetboil stove with dehydrated meals, purification tablets and a metal cup, my grandfather's knife still sharp after all these years, a weatherproof topo map sealed in plastic, compass on a lanyard tucked into my thermal, and my rifle a Winchester model, 70.308 with a Leupold VX3 eye optic, zeroed at 200 yards, cleaned and checked twice before I left. I was quiet going in, always am, moved with care, stopping every few dozen paces to listen. Most people forget hunting isn't walking with a gun, it's listening with your whole body. It's patience, rhythm, silence. You don't push into the woods, you ease into them, like a shadow, easing into dusk. That first afternoon, I didn't hunt, just scouted. Found my old campsite under a rock outcrop, facing a game trail I'd seen rubs on years ago. Set my bivvy between 2 big boulders that broke the wind. Collected deadfall for a fire, though I didn't plan on making one that night, too much smoke. Instead, I boiled water for a freeze-dried stew and watched the sun fade from orange to grey behind the pines. That's the first thing I remember being off. The silence. Normally you hear owls, wind, the occasional skitter of small critters making rounds. That night nothing. Just the sound of my own chewing and the low crackle of my stove cooling down. I told myself it was just the cold. Cold makes everything hunker down. Still, I didn't sleep well. Tossed a few times. Woke up around 2 a.m. to absolute stillness. You know how sometimes silence has a kind of weight, like it presses in around you? That kind of quiet. But by morning, it was like any other hunt. I dressed slow merino base, fleece mid-layer, camo softshell on top. Applied scent killer again just in case. Packed light for the stalk, rifle, rangefinder, 1 protein bar, and the map tucked inside my shirt. I was moving by first light, following a saddle that connected 2 ridge lines. I knew there was a shallow draw where muleys like to bed down during the day, full of shadow and scattered rock. Good cover, good glass in lanes. The forest was cold, maybe 28 degrees. You could see your breath hanging in front of you in little ghost clouds. Pine needles crunched under my boots even as I tried to walk heel to toe. Everything smelled like cold sap and dry bark. I moved slow. Took me nearly 2 hours to cover a mile. That's when I saw it. At first, it was just movement. A flicker through the brush about 70 yards ahead, right where the terrain dipped into a dry creek bed. I raised my rifle and steadied it on a deadfall. Through the scope, I could see the outline. Not fully, but enough. The sweep of antlers, big, at least 4 on each side, maybe 5. I held my breath, exhaled, squeezed, fired and missed, but not a graze, not a nick, a clean miss. The buck jerked slightly, not in fear, just froze. And then it looked at me. I mean, really looked. I've hunted animals that notice you. They stare for a second, ears twitching, deciding whether you're threat or shadow. This was different. This buck, if that's what it was, didn't bolt, didn't run, didn't even flinch. It just stood there, motionless, antlers wide and sharp like bare limbs against the pale sky. Its eyes locked on mine through brush too thin to hide behind. No snort. No tail flick, just stillness. And the strangest thing? The moment stretched, too long, unnatural. I swear the air changed. Everything went thick, not louder, not quieter, just dense, like the forest itself had stopped breathing. I blinked and it was gone. No crash through the brush, no sign of flight. One moment it was staring at me through the scrub oak, the next empty woods. Now, I've hunted for over 3 decades. I've missed before. It happens, but this didn't feel like a miss. It felt like the start of something. I stood there longer than I should have. Lowered my rifle, scanned the trees. Nothing. No fresh tracks, no movement. Just me, my pulse in my ears, and the creeping realization that something was off. Really off. I marked the spot in my mind and began to circle wide, figuring maybe I could pick up where it went, maybe get another chance. But with each step, the woods felt wrong. There's no other word for it. I must have spent a good 20 minutes searching that creek bed. Knees bent, rifle lowered, eyes moving through the underbrush. The place where I'd seen it, the buck, looked different now. More open, more exposed. The kind of clearing you suddenly realise you're standing in, not behind. I did a slow pivot, checking for prints, broken branches, anything. But there was nothing. No fresh sign, no scent, no hoof imprints in the frost-soft dirt. That didn't make sense, not even for a miss. A spooked buck leaves a trail, panic makes them sloppy. You hear them crash through deadfall, you smell the adrenaline they throw off, you see tufts of fur caught on bark. This was like it vanished. I didn't like that, not one bit. I told myself I must have just misjudged the terrain. Maybe it ducked low and ghosted out. Maybe the angle was off and the bullet hit high, ricocheting into a log or a rock behind it. I scanned with my rangefinder, 71 yards to where it stood, give or take. I never missed that bad at that distance. The silence had teeth now. Even the chickadees had gone quiet, and the air had this heaviness to it, like standing inside a storm that hadn't broken yet. I could feel my breath tightening, not panicked, just alert. Like my brain knew something before my body did. I pressed forward, up the ridgeline where I guessed the buck might have retreated. That's when I saw something that made me stop cold. My own boot prints, heading the same direction I was about to walk. Clear as day, in the frost-soft loam, not backtracked, not turned around, forward. I hadn't been this way yet. I bent down, touched one, still crisp, edges sharp. They looked like they'd been made maybe 30 minutes ago. Same tread pattern as my Dana's, same stride length, same drag mark where my right boot always scuffs slightly when I'm tired. I stood up, real slow, looked around. Trees swaying just slightly in the breeze, the whisper of pine needles high overhead. But all I could hear now was my heartbeat. I checked my compass. It spun. Not fast, just slow enough to make my stomach drop. The needle swung past north, hesitated, then eased itself towards southeast, then back again. Not magnetic interference. I wasn't near any iron or electronics. I checked my GPS next. A dead screen. Batteries fresh that morning. Worked perfectly at breakfast. Now, nothing. Just a blank greenish glow, like it had powered on without thinking, then forgotten what it was. I exhaled through my teeth. Not afraid, not yet, just wary. There's a saying among old woodsmen. The forest will never lie, but it doesn't owe you answers either. I decided to head back to camp. It wasn't far, maybe half a mile down slope. Should have taken 20 minutes most, but as I followed the trail back, I felt something tighten in my chest. The terrain looked too familiar, like déjà vu you can smell. That's when I saw the rock. A flat boulder covered in lichen, split down the middle like a tooth cracked long ago. It was right near my camp. I'd seen it that morning when I boiled water for coffee. I was back. But I hadn't looped. I'd walked straight, uphill, away from camp. I turned slowly, scanned the trees. The forest looked the same in every direction. You ever have that feeling where the woods stop looking like woods and start looking like walls? I sat down on the log I used as a stool, opened a granola bar, took one bite and stopped chewing. There, next to the fire ring I'd built, was a .308 brass casing. Spent. I hadn't fired that round here. I'd shot once earlier near the creek bed. This was a new casing, sitting dead centre on a flat rock like someone had placed it there. My name was carved faintly into the casing wall. I recognised it. Back in high school, I used to etch my initials onto the first round I chambered before each hunt. Dad's idea. He said it marked the start of a clean kill. I hadn't done that in 20 years. And yet, there it was. My initials. Same angle, same scratch pattern. I didn't move, didn't touch it, just stared. And that's when I heard the breathing. Soft, rhythmic, maybe 5 paces away, behind me, matching mine. When I inhaled, it inhaled. When I held my breath, it stopped. Perfect mirror, not a second off. Not behind a tree, not around a bend. Right there. I turned slowly. No one. Just the fire pit. The same trees. Same boulders. But everything felt wrong now. Like the forest wasn't just quiet, it was listening. My instinct said move, so I packed fast. Shoved everything back into my ruck, cinched it down. I decided to head toward the trailhead, not camp anymore. I didn't want to spend another night in that basin. But the woods didn't let me go. I walked hard, fast, compass useless, GPS still dead. But I had the sun, late afternoon now golden through the tops of the trees. I followed its angle west. An hour passed, maybe 2. I found myself back at the camp. Same fire ring, same stool, same spent casing, like I'd never left. That was the moment it shifted. Not just paranoia anymore. Not just wilderness playing tricks on a tired man. I was inside something now, something I couldn't see, couldn't explain, but I could feel it watching me. Not a buck, not a bear, not a man. Something that wore the woods like clothing. I didn't have time to make it out before dark, so I forced myself to make camp again this time, under a thicker canopy, closer to the rock wall for some cover. I got the fire going. Fast, dry cedar bark and birch shavings, sparked quick, but it didn't feel right. The flames danced, but there was no warmth, no scent of smoke, like the fire was burning behind glass. Twice it blew out for no reason. No wind, no draft, just a sudden hush, and gone. I relit it, sat back against the wall, rifle across my knees, and that's when I saw the shape, just beyond the firelight, standing still, silhouetted in the trees, too tall to be a deer, but it had antlers, broad, elegant, like polished bone. Its legs didn't move, its arms hung down, elbows locked, palms facing back. The antlers didn't sway with its breath because it wasn't breathing. It just stood there, head slightly tilted, watching. And I realised it stood like me. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. The fire snapped softly in front of me, but it felt dim, like it was burned underwater. Every sound in the forest had vanished again. Even my own breath sounded foreign. I was staring at the silhouette, still as stone, just inside the tree line, not moving, not blinking, that rack of antlers catching starlight like polished ivory. It didn't step forward, didn't shrink back, just stood there, watching, like it had always been there, like it had been waiting for me to finally notice. And I swear on my life that it had the same posture I did, same tilt of the head, same angle of the legs, same grip on nothing at all. It was like I was looking at a shadow, cast in reverse. My hands had gone cold. I tightened them on the rifle without thinking. I didn't raise it, I just held it. But something deep inside me whispered not to move, not because it might spook, but because it might react. The air was thick, dense enough to chew. I blinked once, and it was gone. No footsteps, no breaking branches, just empty trees again, like the space it occupied had folded shut behind it, but the feeling didn't go with it. Whatever it was, it hadn't left. It had only stepped out of sight. That night, I didn't sleep. I tried. Laid back in my bivvy, rifle barrel across my chest, heart thumping like distant drums. I'd close my eyes, only to feel that same rhythm, that mirroring happening again. When I rolled over, something out there did too. When I held my breath, the forest exhaled. Every action answered, like my presence was being measured. Somewhere near 3 a.m, the fire guttered out again. The flames just vanished, not flickered, not died down, snuffed, like someone had pinched the wick between 2 fingers. I sat up, fully awake now, my breath fogged in the air. That's when I heard it. A low hum. Not mechanical, not natural. Just a sound you feel more than hear. A pressure. Like standing near power lines, or right before a lightning strike. My teeth buzzed, my fillings ached. I could feel the hum through the ground, rising up into my spine. And then it spoke. Not words, not English, not even sound really. Just intention. I don't know how to explain it, but I'll try. It didn't say go. It didn't say stay. It said, "You were never alone." I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Instead, I crawled from the bivvy and knelt beside the cold ashes of the fire. And right there, nestled in the soot, was another casing. Not the one from before. This one was buried slightly, still warm. It had the same scratches, same initials. But this time, the primer wasn't dented. It hadn't been fired. It had never been loaded. Now I was shaking. I looked around, eyes wide, scanning shadows. I didn't want to stay, but I didn't know how to leave. The forest had folded in on itself. Trails didn't lead out. They curved, looped, brought me back to where I began. The stars shifted above me. I could have sworn the constellations were wrong. Orion's belt was there, but upside down, the Big Dipper missing one star, or maybe watching me from where it should have been. I sat down on the boulder, same one from yesterday, and I waited for light. When the sun finally came grey and distant, not warm, the forest felt calmer, not normal, just quieter, like whatever had happened was complete. I packed slowly, methodically. I didn't speak, didn't eat, just tightened my straps and began to walk. South, uphill, no compass, no GPS, just instinct. And this time, the forest let me go. It wasn't easy, took half the day, but eventually I crested a ridge and there it was, the trailhead. My truck, still waiting like none of this had happened. But one thing did happen, right there, on the hood, tucked under the wiper blade like a note was a Polaroid. Old, faded, corners bent. I picked it up with shaking hands. It was me, sleeping in my bivvy. Same position. Same rock wall behind me. Taken from no more than 10 feet away. At night. My rifle visible across my chest. My eyes shut. Vulnerable. The edges of the photo were smudged. Like it had been handled. Carried. Maybe kept. I left without thinking. Didn't stop until I was back on the highway. Didn't speak to anyone for 2 days. I told no one, not until now. But every so often late at night, I get that feeling again. That breath beside mine. That mirrored rhythm. That knowing that I didn't walk out alone. And once, just once, I thought I saw it again. Far off, near the tree line behind my cabin. Broad antlers, upright shape, still as the mountains. Watching. I didn't raise my rifle. Because I know now, whatever it was, I didn't miss. I was never the one hunting.